So now you can go with video, sir.
Okay. So, good evening, friends. I'm going to share a short 30 minutes video, a conversation between Krishji and Mary's Embalist. So let's watch this, and after we finish watching, then we can share our understanding. So just give me a minute. Are you able to see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The subject we talked about so many times, but it keeps coming back and back to people's questions and preoccupations, and that is the subject of fear. Do you want to talk about that?
It's rather complicated subject. Really requires a great deal of inquiry because it is so subtle, so varied, so abstract, and also it is actual too, though we make it into an abstraction. The actuality of fear and the idea of fear, which is the abstraction of fear into an idea. So we must be very clear what we are talking about. The abstraction as an idea of fear or the actuality of fear. You and I sitting, or all of us sitting here, at this present moment, we're not afraid. There is no sense of apprehension or danger. At this instant, there is no fear. So fear is both an abstraction as an idea, as a word, and also the fact. First of all, let's deal with these two. Why do we generally make an abstraction of things? Why do we see something actual and then turn it into an idea? Is it because the idea is easier to pursue, or is the idea is our condition, or we are educated to ideas or in ideas, not educated to deal with facts? Why is this? Why is it that human beings throughout the world deal with abstractions? What should be, what must be, what will happen, and so on. The whole world of ideation and the ideologies, whether it be the communist ideology based on Marx and Lenin, or the capitalist ideas of so-called free enterprise and so on, or the whole world of religious concepts, beliefs, ideas, and the theologians working these ideas out. why is it that ideals have become so extraordinarily important from the ancient Greeks, even before Greeks and so on? Ideas prevailed. And now, even now, ideals separate man, and they bring wars, all kinds. Why do human beings, or why do the brain of human beings operate this way? Is it because they cannot deal with facts directly, and so escape subtly into ideations? If one sees ideas, the ideas are really very divisive factor. They bring friction. They divide communities, nations, sects, religions, and so on. Which is ideas, beliefs, faith, all that is based on thought and facts. What are facts? What exactly is a fact? Not an opinion about fact or opinion made into facts.
What is the fact of fear, sir?
I'm coming to that. First, we must establish the distinction between the idea of fear, the abstraction as the word fear, and the actual fear. The actual fear is the fact, not the abstraction. If one can move away from the abstraction, then we can deal with fact. But if they are both running parallel all the time, then there's a conflict between the two. That is the idea, the ideology dominating the fact, and the fact sometimes dominating the idea.
Most people would say that the fact of fear is the very painful emotion. Fear.
Now let us look at that, not the idea of fear. So let's look at the fact. That's what I'm coming to. The fact of actual fear. And to remain with that fact, which requires a great deal of inward discipline.
Can you describe what remaining with the fact of fear actually is?
It's like holding a jewel, an intricate pattern by an artist who has brought this extraordinary jewel. You look at it. You don't condemn it. You don't say how beautiful and run away with words, but you are looking at this extraordinary thing put together by hand, by a cunning fingers and the mind that has, the brain that has brought this. You're watching it, you're looking at it, turn it around, look at it various sides, the back and the front and the side, and you never let it go.
Do you mean that you just feel it very acutely, very sensitively, with great care?
Care, that's what happens.
But you feel it because
of
it's an
course,
emotion.
you have the feeling of beauty, the feeling of the intricate pattern and the sparkle of the brightness, the sparkle of the jewels and so on. So can we deal with the fact of fear and look at it that way? Not escape, Not say, well, I don't like fear, get nervous and apprehensive and suppress it, or control it, or deny it, or try move it into another field. If we can do all that, just remain with that fear. So fear then becomes an actual fact. It's there, whether you are conscious of it or not, whether you have hidden it very, very, very deeply, is still there. So then we can ask very carefully and hesitantly, what is this fear? Why human beings, after this tremendous evolution, still live with fear? Is it something that can be, like a surgeon, operated upon and removed? Like a disease, like cancer or any other dreadful, painful disease. Is it something that can be operated upon? Which means there is an entity who can operate upon it. But that very entity is an abstraction of trying to do something about fear. So that entity is unreal. What is factual is fear. And this requires very careful attention, not to be caught in this abstraction of the one who says, I'm observing fear, or one who says, I must put away fear or control fear and so on. It is we are watching fear, not who is watching. The one who watches is also the outcome of fear. If this is clear, that the observer, go back to our old saying, the observer is the observed, the thinker is the thought, the doer is the entity who is doing. There is no division. And so, if there is no division, which is an extraordinary factorial fact, not an idea I must realize, it's an extraordinary fact that there is no division between the observer and the observed. Therefore, there is no conflict. Conflict exists when there is the observer different from the observed, which is what most of us do. And therefore, live with perpetual conflict. That's another matter. So, can we look at that fear? And in the very act of looking, watching fear, one begins to discover the origin, the beginning, what is the causation. Because the very fact of looking at it is to see how it came about. Not analyze, because the analyzer is the analyzer. Not analyze, dissect fear, but that very close, delicate of the watching reveals the content of fear. The content being the origin, the beginning, the causation. Because where there is a cause, there is an end. The cause can never be different from the result. So the discovery or in the observation, in the watching, the causation is revealed.
So the causation that you're speaking of is presumably not an individual fear, particular fear.
Oh no,
You're
no, no.
speaking of
I mean, of
the
fear,
causation of fear itself.
fear itself, not the various forms of fear. And that's what we generally see how we break up this fear. That's part of our tradition to bring about a fragmentation of fear. Therefore, be concerned only with one type of fear, not the whole tree of fear, not a particular branch, a particular leaf of fear, but the whole nature, the structure, the quality of fear. And in observing that very closely, watching there is the revelation of the causation. Not you analyze to find out the cause, but the very watching is showing the causation, which is time and form. Of course, that's simple when you put it there. Everybody will accept its time and form. If there was no time and form, there is no fear.
Well, could you enlarge a little bit on that? Because most people think that that there is something, that there is, how can I put it? That they don't see that there is no future. They think, I'm afraid now from a cause. They don't see the factor of time in thought.
I think it's fair. It's very simple. If there was no time, or if there is no saying, I am afraid because I have done something in the past, or I've had pain in the past, or somebody has hurt me and I don't want to be hurt anymore. Or that is the past, the background, which is time. And the future, that is, I am this now, I will die. Or I might lose my job, or my wife will be angry with me, and so on. Or so there is this past and the future. And we are caught in between the two. That is, the past has its relationship with the future. The future is not something separate from the past. It's a movement of modification of the past to the future, to tomorrow. So that is time, this movement of the past, which is the past as I have been, and the future I will be, which is this constant becoming. And that too is another problem we don't touch for the moment. That may be the causation, the becoming. So time is a factor, is a basic factor of fear. There's no question. I have a job now. I have money now. I have a shelter over my head. But tomorrow, or maybe 100 tomorrow, might deprive me of all that. Some accident, some fire, some lack of enough insurance, and so on, as it has happened in this house. All that is a time factor. Not the ending of time, but see the factor that fear is part of time. Not say, can I enter? That would be silly question. Sorry to use the word silly. And also thought is a factor of fear. Thought. I have been, I am, but I may not. Factor of thought. Thought is limited, which is another matter. Thought is limited. Because it's based on knowledge. Knowledge is always accumulative. And that which is being added to is always limited. So knowledge is limited, so thought is limited. Because thought is based on knowledge, memory, and so on. So thought and time are the central factors of fear. Thought is not separate from time. They are one. They are not revolved. They are not separate. So these are the facts. This is the causation of fear. No. That's a fact, not an idea, not an abstract. That thought and time is the cause of fear, not all. It's sin. So, man then asks, how do I stop time and thought? Because his intention, his desire, his longing is to be free from fear. And so he's caught in his own desire to be free, but he's not watching. He's not watching very carefully the causation. When you're watching very carefully, without any movement, watching implies a state of the brain in which there is no movement. It's like watching a bird. And if you watch the bird very closely, as we watched this morning, that dove on the windowsill, you watch all the feathers, the red eyes, the sparkle in the eyes, the beak, the shape of its head, the wings, and so on. You watch it very carefully. And that which you watch very, very carefully reveals not only the causation, but the ending of the thing that you're watching. So this watching is really holds the past, the future, and the present. So if you can listen to this very carefully, not only with the hearing of the ear, but listen to the word and go beyond the word and see the actual nature of it. Not read about fear, but how watching becomes so extraordinarily beautiful, sensitive, alive. All this requires an extraordinary quality of attention. Because in attention, there is no activity of the self. It is the self-interest in our life is the cause of fear. The sense of me And my concern, my happiness, my success, my failure, my achievement, I am this, I am not. This whole self-centered observation from which, with all its expressions of fear, agony, of depression, pain, anxiety, aspiration and sorrow, all that is self-interest, whether in the name of God, in the name of prayer, in the name of faith, it's self-interest. Where there is self-interest, there must be and all the consequences of it. Then, on us, again, is it possible to live in this world where self-interest is predominant, whether it's in the totalitarian world, with its desire, with its search for power and holding power of the capitalist world, with its own power. Self-interest is dominant. Whether it is in the religious hierarchical Catholic world or every religious world, is self-interest is dominant. And therefore they are perpetuating fear. Though they talk about live with parchment terrace, which is peace on earth, they really don't mean it. Because self-interest with a desire for power, position, for its fulfillment, and so on, is the factor that is destroying not only the world, destroying our own extraordinary capacity of the brain. The brain has extraordinary capacity, as is shown in the technology. The extraordinary things they are doing. And we never apply that same immense capacity inward to be free of fear, to end self, to know what love is, and compassion with its intent. We never search, explore that field. They're caught by the world, all this misery.
Yes, Harshad bhai.
Yes. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you, Dubeji. The title of this talk, Thought and Time are the cause of fear. I would say that thought and time are the cause of fear only in the absence of clear seeing. When there is a clear seeing without this observer, then thought and time can go on without creating any fear. It means like moving with what is and not projecting what should be. And so the fear comes when there is no clear observation. Otherwise, everything, whatever is happening, we can see and move with it. But is it possible, if somebody asks a question, is it possible to move with what is, means moving with thinking itself, without the thinker coming and trying to interfere with thinking. Is it possible? I would say my answer would be yes, if we are very, very curious to look inward at our own mind, not when there is a problem like fear or anger, but when there are no problems. That means if we are very curious whether there are problems or not. Generally, if there are problems, we cannot observe clearly. But in our daily life, when we become very curious to look whether when there are no problems, and then that inward looking can become like our nature. And so when a fear or anger is arising, we can see the beginning of it. So it requires the freedom to watch clearly whatever is happening moment by moment. Because if we are not in that state of watching and suddenly the fear comes, then it will overpower us and it will create a lot of uh, confused thinking and imagining many things which are really not there. So our problem is a lot of imagination of what will happen, like it has to do with the attachment to the known. We are attached, as an example, if we have lived in one city and we are very comfortable, more or less, and then for some reason we have to go outside the country or some other state, and we don't know there. And when we travel to that place, there will be a lot of thinking going on, unnecessary thinking of what will happen. So that is not the fear of unknown, but the fear of losing the known. And that happens to most of us when we are not very curious to watch whatever is happening, whether there are problems or not. So there is no motivation, only interest to just watch. And in that, it is possible to come to that state when this watching becomes our nature. We don't make an effort to watch. And that is only, I think, the solution to all the problems, whether it is fear, anger, jealousy, loneliness, boredom, is to be free to watch. And that is very difficult for most people. And what Krishnamurti says, if a person tries to do it, a person may be able to do it for a short period, but then it doesn't happen naturally, spontaneously, effortlessly. So maybe Krishnamurti is telling us that there is this state of freedom in which all the contents, the whole process of fear, anger, jealousy can be seen. And that's why he says freedom is at the beginning. And so again, he comes back to how we do anything. And also in his talk, he said attention is required. That means this clear looking is required. And also he says watch carefully, and that leads to ending. So in watching, there are no problems. But when there is no watching, then the thinking goes in a loop and creates more and more confusion. And we go on sinking into thinking. And in that, all the problems arise of psychological nature. So one analogy we can give is like if we are living in a room and there are many snakes, we will be very, very alert because a snake can come anytime. So similarly, when we feel that these thoughts which are going on within us are like snakes. And that is actually when I was reading Krishnamurti in the beginning, I was feeling like that. It is very, very difficult to watch these thoughts. It's like snakes. And there is a lot of disturbance can also happen. But if you don't escape from this unpleasant feeling and just want to be very, very curious, then those snakes, they become our friend and then they don't create fear or anger or jealousy. So not escaping from what is, that is very, very important. Okay, I have said enough thing right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Dinesh.
Are you able to listen to me, sir?
Yeah.
I would like to forward my views on this. In my views, basically for fear, root cause is insecurity of any kind. Now, when we talk of idea and actuality, idea is made up of thoughts, which becomes abstraction. That is very clear. Now, thought is in my views, it fuels and enhances the fear. It is not the basic cause of fear. Fear, whether it is actual or physical, or because of any abstraction, not actual, the root cause is insecurity. Now, what is fear or structure of fear in itself? It is a feeling which, when enhanced, becomes emotion. It is a feeling basically which when enhanced, it becomes a fear, emotion. It is basically a negative energy. Now, in itself, it is like a warning signal, which means you should take an action. Otherwise, you will have to face loss of some kind, or sorrow, or pain, etc. So, the fear comes either when we talk of past, it means it is fear. When we talk of future, it is anxiety. So, pain in future is anxiety, and pain in past, which from our experiences, is the basically fear. Now, it is directly related to the positive energy you have in form of strength. Strength is directly related to the positive energy you have in the form of strength, capacity, capability, resources, etc., etc. If you are having more energy of bravado, capacity, you are having more, or capability, you are having more, or you are having more resources, then the fear will be less. So in young age, you have less fear, whereas in the childhood or in the old age, you are having more fear. It is very clear when you are having the less energy, it is more. So lesser the strength, more fear you have. It is very clear. It automatically means if you are having more energy of bravado, courage, confidence, you will have less fear. Now the beauty is whether it is fear or energy of bravado, etc. It manifests only when there is an external or internal stimulus, whether it is actual or an abstract nature. So when exam is there, students are having fear of failure. And to compensate that, they go to a temple for prayer to have positive energy by ideation. It is very clear. As talked by JK, one has to face the actual fear. It is very clear. JK has also confirmed that actual fear you have to face. But to take the cause of the fear by ideation, one has to have wisdom, intelligence, etc. As here he has to address his center. Basically, here he has to address the center for ignorance, his ill intentions, vested interests, etc., etc., which are the cause of self-centered activity. So thought and time are not the real culprit, but it's the usage by center is the problem. Harshad ji has also confirmed thought. Many times we have discussed this thing in past also, in recent all these dialogues. That thought is not the real culprit. Or thought, if intelligence is there, wisdom is there, then the thought is not a problem. But when its usage by its center is for the self-centered, is a self-centered activity, or for the by ill intentions or the malified intentions, etc., or vested interest, then there is a problem. And to lose that thing, to lose the strength, lose the capacity, etc., is the real cause of the fear. These are my views, and I want to talk right now this much only. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Yeah, about what Dinesh ji talked about. One sentence which he used, you have to take action. But then what is that you? Is it that art of thinking, or it is something different than thinking? So it seems to me that beyond thinking and feeling, there is a real seeing. And that seeing is what you can call it choiceless awareness, or attention, or insight, or whatever you call. Krishnamurti uses many words. So when we can see without thinking, and when thinking is seen clearly, then there are no problems. So to come to that state of seeing without thinking, without thinker, without this sense of you or I or me, which is trying to change, then there is no need to fight, no need to escape, no need to suppress, but just seeing is the action. Like perception is the action, which Krishnamurti says. So our problem, main problem, is that we have not come to that state of seeing without the observer. So our conditioning is that I can do something, I can act on fear, or I can suppress it. That creates more problem. So there is something what Krishnamurti says, something very subtle, and very few people may come to that state of intelligence, a direct, clear seeing, which can look at thoughts, then problems are solved, I feel. But without that, there will be a lot of escape, a lot of struggle, lot of trying to change what is into what should be. And so that leads to more conflict, going round and round into thinking and feeling. And then out of that can come many problems. So again, one has to come out from thinking and feeling and see thinking and feeling very clearly. So that is seeing the content. And that will not happen by trying to do it, but when we become very curious to look at our inner world, and generally very few people are interested in the inner world, and we can gather a lot of information about awareness and attention from reading Krishnamurti, but that will not help. Only when we experiment in when we don't have problem, we can we look and keep on looking it as long as it is possible, but also not doing it, overdoing it. So otherwise one can get very tired of trying to be aware. So main problem is that there is no you who has to take action, but this clear seeing is required, attention. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Anandji. Anandji.
Yes, sir. So first and foremost, I need to understand when I'm talking about fear, sir, whether it is functional or whether it is psychological. I may try and divide as functional and psychological, but that division actually I say it's confusing. I may verbally say functional or psychological. Most of the time, our fears, what's happening, are in the psyche. What happened in the past or what may happen in the future. That is very essential. And when I say that the me is a problem for all these things, that me should not be there, how do I understand, sir? Every second, every millisecond, I'm trying to protect that me. Without the me, I am nothing. So when I say I should understand fear, when I say I should solve fear, whatever it is, again, we go back to the solutions of solving the problem. That is my background. I am using words which I'm going back into my past. I'm saying the problem should be solved. And someone is saying, can you look at it? In that seeing, there's an understanding. Understanding is action. But for me, I have to do something about it. That's my conditioning. Again and again and again, sir, can we see we are always falling into pitfall, the same pitfall. Same thing everywhere, every time I go and fall into the same thing. Can you observe that at least is what I would look at it, sir. Now, fear, when you talk about the fear, I come across a wild animal, I see a tiger, there is instantaneous, for you to respond to it, you run away from that. You don't say, I should run. Or if you see a snake, immediately there's an action. I don't say I should act. So, functionally, fear is very essential. It protects me. It is very important. For my survival, there has to be fear. Otherwise, I would climb mountains and jump from the top buildings and this and that, which is very dangerous for me. I won't survive. So fear is essential in my survival. But somehow we get caught in this. When someone comes along and says physical and psychological, I am lost. I do try to separate them, but that separation, it's quite a challenge itself to understand what it is. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Dinesh ji.
Sir, I would like to make comment on Harshad sir's statement that one thing is very clear. JK has also said very clearly that thought is a product of time. Now, suppose I'm good at maths and I'm bad in Sanskrit. Definitely, I will having more fear for the Sanskrit paper if I had to give the exam, and less fear in case of mathematics. So it is very clear that my resources, my ability is definitely a very important component in the with the time factor. So it is not the only time factor, but my resources, my capability, my etc. are the also very important factor. Now, suppose I am having a fear and I want to observe it. So I have to face the exam. Now, whether it is an actual fear or abstraction, let us, but I am having the fear and I want to remain it and observe it. So if I am having the energy to compensate it, I will definitely be through of that fear. But if I don't have that energy, then what will happen? I don't have the capacity to tackle it, then what will happen? We feel this we see this in many of the cases in the average mob. Such capacity is lacking. As Harshad sir said, very few people will be having that wisdom and intelligence to support them. But if that is not there, then one has to have go for the getting the energy. Now, from where he should get that energy? That is my question. Let Harshad sir reply.
Unmute. Harshad bhai, unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay. Energy comes when we are really interested in something. Like when people are interested in mathematics, they will have the energy, they will spend hours doing mathematics or music. As many musicians, they practice every day for many, many hours. Similarly, when a person is really interested in looking at the inner world in which so many thoughts and feelings are going on. And that interest, passion to observe oneself, energy comes from that. So, are we really interested in looking at even a problem like boredom or fear and all these problems? Even why we get tired, what is that? Is it because a lot of unconscious thing is going on within us and we are not able to observe? Like if you are sitting in a classroom and you don't know what is going on, what the teacher is talking about, and you are not into it, then every time you will keep on looking at your watch and you will feel tired and bored and you may yawn. All kinds of symptoms will be there. But if you are very, very attentive to the teacher who is teaching in the classroom and you are moving with it and understanding it, then there are no problems. There is a lot of energy. And even if a teacher makes a mistake, if you are a good student, you can point out. So it has to do with this attention. And our attention is mostly given to the outside world, outer world, but there is an inner world. And when people are interested in that, all this energy comes. And then we can even understand Krishnamurti very, very quickly. And we can say, yes, what he says is very obvious. There is no need to keep on thinking about what Krishnamurti is saying. And that will create more problems if you keep on thinking about what Krishnamurti says. But if you see it, what Krishnamurti says is true, then you say yes, and then finish. So energy comes from deep interest, passion to look at our inner world. Okay, I have finished.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Shiv Kumar, please unmute yourself. Please unmute.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are.
In fact, it is clearly mentioned in the video, the difference between the actual fear and the idea of the fear. Okay, somewhere when we get into the discussion or dialogues, the chances are we discuss more of on the idea of the fear. And as Mr. Anand was mentioning, very clearly, somewhere we are all the time trying to understand this idea rather than the actual fear, right? And he also put one very interesting point, the functional and psychological world. Yes, in functional world we require fear, and in psychological world, that is the dangerous thing. But how are you going to put things in right place? Okay, this confusion is there. That's what he mentioned in that time. That is a clear demarcation between the psychological and functional fear is very, very difficult to find out. Probably it is the attention. Okay, it is the awareness. That awareness puts thought in right place. That awareness probably puts the thought which has its place in the functional world. Probably that place is rightly put by the awareness. Okay, so and a very, very important point is the understanding aspect which he made. Somewhere when we say the understanding, we wanted to bring anything in the form of knowledge. Oh, now I listened to this, now I understood. So what do I mean when I say I understood? So I got some idea, right? So this is the general thinking of understanding. So what he was trying to implement, there's something beyond, understanding is action. If it is a pure action, okay, if it is a pure action, this is just like still an intellectual talk. But then in that action, okay, that moment can't be captured, that can't be experienced, that can't be like, given shape, right? So in that sense, like, that understanding can't be brought into the knowledge. Okay, so when K says like, the whole of life is in the moment, at the same time, he also says all of time is in the present, whether present, future, and it's working in the present, right? So these two things are so crucial. Okay, it puts one to like, to be aware, like not that like, you want to get into that moment, like, can I be aware of my status, where like, what you call it as what is, can I be aware of that, like, so not to aspire like, to be like, I'll get into that moment. You can never get into that moment, it has to come in, right? Okay, so and like, when somebody else was talking about like, having energy somewhere, like, we are putting like, who is asking, like, who is asking, like, inside, like, I need energy to have attention. Okay, so that same stream is trying to like, put condition. Okay, so look, you should have this much energy, or you should be this, only then, or you should have a transformation, only then, like, you can see. So this kind of thing, like, that's where like, cases like, if you are inattentive, and if you are aware of inattentive, that itself is an attention, right? So I can never like, go towards the attention, like, I can just be aware of what is, and then like, that process probably take me into the attention. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Ravi Kaushal, unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Actually, we are talking about, actually the fear is very, I think the very fundamental content in our consciousness. So, one can watch the anger, the anxiety, the jealousy, but the fear is still there. Even if you are watching things, the fear is still there. Fear is actually, I think it's there because it's related to the body and the mind both. And there is a watching of the fear as a feeling. When there is fear, you feel that without naming, you can feel that in your body, the chemical reactions and all, and the mind becoming low and wants to escape, and all the causations come into. If you are watching, you will see all the causations by your own. You don't need any Krishnamurti talking and all. You see that that the mind is escaping or not, and the mind is want to ignore that person from whom we are. All that thing you can see. So all that and that seeing what happened when you see the thing as actual, when the fear is there in a moment of your life, in the day-to-day moment of your life. I think that seeing is a big learning, I think. So and you see that you see all and there is one then there is a question when you are bit free, and then there is a question here, why there is a fear in me, why I fear. So when I see that, and then in that thing I see that because of I have all that attachments with my wife, with my children, with my property, with my image. So I see that all that's there. So I think somewhere I have read in Krishnamurti, I think he said that as long as you have a pleasure of any kind, the fear is bound to be there. And the pleasure and fear go together, I think. So if you are having pleasure from your wife, from your money, from your image, from the respect which society gives you, all these you see the pleasure, and what in that scene, in the very scene, actually what that scene gives us, I think that the very scene isn't mean to end the fear, but it's there. The fear is there, but the conscious is free. how should I put that? It's like uh, you can watch the fear fearlessly. Matlab, before that you are escaping, you are reacting, you are ignoring, or you don't want to meet that person, you don't want to go that place. All that thing happens, and you see that, and that seeing gives you more stillness. So that stillness, even if the fear is there in your whenever you meet with the fear, that seeing gives you the stillness to your mind. That stillness, see the thing like a disturbance on the surface of the ocean, and one get there is a conscious which is free from all that action reactions of the fear. And then all this question is I already I also this question of the physical fear and this psychological fear. This is very not a very thin line to see that. Actually, we see that the actual fear, the physical fear, when the snake is there, you react suddenly. You don't think that I should react. The body intelligence take over your all thinking, and it act accordingly. But see that I am not only the body. I am all the psyche, all the things, including all my money, all, and I belong to them. My identification with them. My identification with them. Then I then fear take over all those things also. Somehow I'm unable to put, but I think the seeing is actually the thing. So, and one more thing, you cannot say that the state of mind which is free from the very state of mind. When you say that, that is not an achievement. Then the mind talking in terms of achievement, and I forgot. Anyhow,
Okay.
thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Yes, Prasad Garu, please unmute yourself.
Sir, sir, there are different types of fears. For example, Mr. Waghmare was referring to the type of fear where your resources are not sufficient to tackle the problem. Supposing I am a weak student, I am a student weak in maths, let us say, then it is obviously, if I have to take an exam in maths, I will have fear. But I know the cause of that fear. And when you can assess your resources and you realize that your resources are not sufficient to tackle a particular problem, supposing I am weak in lungs and I have to cross the river swimming, I naturally have fear. Possibly that is not the type of fear of which JK is speaking of in that video. He says, you know the causation of the fear by observing it, which means I don't have to, I know the causation. When I'm weak in maths, I know. There is no need for me to observe my fear to know why I am afraid. So, where your resources are not sufficient, similarly, when you face a danger, like when you see a tiger, you are obviously afraid. But then he says your reaction is one of intelligence. your running away from the tiger is just your intelligence, your protective mechanism. These are not the types of fears of which he is speaking in this video. That is my understanding. The fears, they are psychological fears for want of a better term. We use the expression which he has used, the psychological fears. I have slept with a woman and I am afraid that it will be known to the public, which I don't want it. That is my fear. That type of fear, you know the reason there, but it persists, that fear persists. For that, you observe the fear without making an abstraction of it. That is what he is saying. The valuable thing is he has made a distinction between the reality of fear, which he calls the fact of fear, and the abstraction of it, the idea of fear. So he has raised that question, why the human mind deals with not the facts of fear, but with the ideas of fear. Why human mind deals with ideas of anything, not simply fear. Idea of envy, idea of greed, idea of all these ideas. We don't deal with my greed. I deal with the idea of greed. That is, possibly we have to understand that video in the right concept. And for that, we have to leave out of its scope some of these fears, like the students, a weak student's fear of an exam, or a weak swimmer's fear of swimming a river. You know, these, I mean, obviously, if I participate in Olympics, I will have fear, no question about that, because my capacity doesn't permit me to participate in that thing. Similarly, if I have invested in a stock market, I will have fear that the stock market will crash. All these things, if I am a businessman, I will have fear that it may go bankrupt. So, sir, we have to understand that video in the right, within its limit, within certain limits. That is my understanding. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prasad Parekh. Yes, Anandji.
So it is only natural for me to have fear about the examinations, about my investments, about my family. There's nothing wrong with it. But I have to see how that becomes psychological. That is very essential. Now, how do I understand every living being is driven by pleasure and pain? Pain is nothing but fear. The more pleasure I want, there's more fear. Do I understand that is a question? I am seeking pleasure all the time. I don't want any pain. I don't want fear. Look at my own contradictions. When I'm talking about that I should dissolve fear, I want to stop fear, it is me. Again, look at my own contradictions. I want the me to survive. I am protecting it all the time. At the same time, I said the jealousy should not be there, fear should not be there, anger should not be there. Look what is happening, sir. Can I look at these things? And then again, when I keep on talking about other people, I'm lost. It has to be about me. No, when I say about freedom, which is the first and foremost, I'm using the word. Can I keep that word aside? And look, I don't want to talk about freedom or anything or compassion. Can I see in my life, you know, what is happening? If I see there's only pleasurable activities, that's all there is. There's so much of suffering out there. There's so much of suffering everywhere around. I don't care for it. I'm only bothered about myself. And at the same time, I say it should not be there. Look at my own contradictions, hypocrisy. So many people are dying. So much of violence is taking place. Who is concerned about it? So when I keep looking at it. There is a possibility of me seeing things as they are. Which comes from inside, my sensitivity. Right now, I'm a very, very insensitive human being. Can I observe? That is the question, sir. And when I say there are some people who have understood K, I should be very clear. Why am I talking about other people who understand K or don't understand K? Why do I keep repeating that? Or can I be honest enough to say I understand him or I know better than him? Over. Why don't I say that? I would appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Rajendran. Please unmute yourself.
Sir, just I am asking only one simple question, sir.
Yeah,
From
please.
morning, from the moment we get up from our bed to the moment we go to sleep, the whole day, all our life, irrespective of whether I'm a layman, I'm a poor or rich or a politician or employed or unemployed, or a boy or a teenage or old age, all our actions are more. There are two forces behind all our actions, sir. Whether it's a physical or psychological, all our actions, there are two forces are there, either the pleasure or fear. We do everything for the sake of pleasure or out of fear. So even the pleasure we do, we can just by observing ourselves we can find out, sir. There is always we do everything for the sake of pleasure or out of fear. Is there any other way of living, sir? Whether we do, very rarely we do something out of love. So when there is a fear, is there any love? Why we in our mediocre life, we just we living in this way. And there is another kind of fear, psychological fear. We fear something of something future, that is something is horrible is going to happen. I may miss the bus or miss the train, or I may fall down, I may get sick, or I may die. And in the meeting, if it does not happen, so that is I get a lot of relief. So this is our mediocre life. It's just entertaining, sir. This is the way we are living. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Dinesh ji.
Are you able to listen to me? Prasad sir has used a very important word, weakness. What is this weakness basically? Suppose if you are having a physical weakness, say you are having a fever, then people tell you to rest. If you rest properly, you get out of it. If you don't, then people admit you into the ICU, give forcefully the rest, and you come out of it. So this weakness is a very important word. This is the case of the physical thing. But when it comes to psychological, what in my views JK is trying to suggest, you be with yourself, see what is that, and take the best action. Afterwards, best action will come out of you if you are properly observant about it. So observation means he means to say that you remain with it and understand what it implies. Then only if you are having a right capacity to do it, you will do it. Otherwise, other way will, whatever the right action will be there, it will come out of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Harshad bhai, please unmute yourself.
Yes. Many times we are using the word, can I see that, or watching. So what is that seeing or watching? Is it a part of thinking, or it is something different than thinking? So it seems to me that when this seeing is different than thinking, then everything can be seen as it is. But If this seeing is a part of thinking, then it will multiply and there is no solution. So the real, what Krishnaji is talking about, the seeing, observing, insight, perception, attention, awareness, intelligence is a different dimension than thinking and feeling. So that is one thing I want to say. And the other thing is that there are certain fears, like fear of snake or wild animals or falling from a great height. They are instinct. They are not fear. They are instinct for survival. And everybody has. But Krishnamurti is talking about the fear which comes from thinking. As for example, a person who is working in an office and he has a fear of boss, and so his behavior is guided by the fear. So he will always try to please boss and will try to avoid even doing something which is right, because there is a fear and he would like to please the boss. So that is a psychological fear. And Krishnamurti is talking about this kind of thing which we do, which is not natural, not spontaneous, but with a deep fear. And when a person asks who has got the fear, then you say, I have got the fear, but then you go deeper into what is this I? And at that time, that is the fundamental question. Who am I? And as long as that question has not become something of great passion, then this thinking can go on and we can ask million questions. But when the right question, the impossible question is asked, the mind really stops. And in that state, maybe there is some learning, some different state of being. Okay, I have finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Harshad Bhai. I think I'll add that's very important to observe yourself, because in a number of cases, our physical fear enters into the psychological domain and creates all kinds of issues and problems. So it's important that we observe. And if you remember watching this video, which we saw about an hour ago, it's very important how are we driven by the self-interest. If self-interest is the primary mover in our day-to-day life, then fear is bound to come. So can we watch that? Can we watch that self-dominating our life? And watching alone can perhaps bring something to us. Yes, Shakti ji, please unmute yourself.
Yes, Harshad ji, I just wanted to submit that, it seems that watching and thinking are incompatible. I mean, when there is watching, there is no thinking. It seems so sometimes only. But I can just share my own experience that you can watch while the thinking is going on. Both things can happen together. You can see a thought till its end, and then you can see another gap which comes there. So it is true that the moment you start watching thoughts, they tend to slow down or even disappear. But if a thought is going on, one can see it in two different ways, not watching it and watching it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shakti. Thank you. I think we have come to the end of the talk now. Anand, you want to say something? Let's have the last word. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Sir, it just occurred to me. I mean, Krishna K also talks about, if you can grasp it intellectually and, analyze it and go ahead with it. And then he says thought comes in, which he says it should be a true thought. Now, this is again, it's very challenging to understand. So he's talking about true thought and understanding it intellectually also. He says analyze it carefully. Now, at least are we doing that is what is very essential. Forget about, all the other things, your freedom, compassion and all that. When it's happening, can I observe that is the question, sir. He's talking about intellectual understanding and he's saying thought, which is true. And thought is always of the past. But again, he says, true thought. I need to seriously look at it, sir. Thank you, sir. That's about all.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, Dineshji, permit me, we want to close it now. We have heard you, maybe next time again. And want to announce that next Sunday we'll have Mr. Gopalan. He'll be speaking to us at 11 o'clock. So if you're interested, please do join. And thank you once again. Thanks a lot. Good night.